everyone, this is Kelly from The Truth in Story, and today we have a beautiful deck to look at together. And this is the Japaridze Tarot by Nino Japaridze. Now, I took a lesson with Bart from Where Alders Whisper on how to pronounce this correctly. And so if that is incorrect or you feel that it's incorrect, I actually Googled some things and you would not believe the differences. Even on sites that say how to pronounce, very, very different. Everyone that you looked at, just about a lot of the reviewers all over the place. But I trust Bart very much when it comes to pronunciation. And so for me, this is going to be the Japaridze Tarot. Again, artwork by Nina Japaridze, and the book is by, I will show you that in a minute. I'll tell you who that is in a minute. US Games, can I just say, did an amazing job at this whole packaging. Like, I am not sure why there aren't more of their decks like this. The box is sturdy, like Oracle box, like you would get a Blue Angel box in. Very sturdy box. It's gorgeous with matte black on the side, but then glossy accents of adjuster here, juggling. You can feel the text here is raised, as well as here you can feel it's kind of slightly raised, but again with that gloss on the matte. Same here in blue. So here we have sort of green, we have blue here, we have yellow, and we have red. So I'm just assuming the suits of the color of the suits here, but it's just stunning against the matte. We have, I'm sure, one of the cards at the front. We'll see which one it is once we go through it. The back has information about the deck, as well as 4 of the images. It's just beautifully done. This says, Japaridze Tarot is a reimagining of the tarot universe through the visionary lens of leading Parisian contemporary artist Nina Japaridze. In each of her 78 collage-style surrealistic paintings, she boldly explores the many layers of esoteric symbolism in tarot, revealing its transformative powers. Her unique interpretations of the minor arcana delve deep into elemental as well as numerological associations. That's very promising to me. This deluxe set includes a 178-page book with full color artwork accompanied by description and divinatory meanings to guide the reader through the fool's journey towards self-knowledge. This was put out in 2014 by US Games. Beautifully, beautifully packaged, and it only gets better. It flips open, again, stunning. We have this gorgeous, gorgeous bound book. Again, we've got some of that matte with, this is raised, as well as these pieces are then again raised with this like glossy accents to them. It's so beautifully done. The text on the side is the same way. And then we have this beautiful, we again have the matte on the side, and you can actually feel it as if it's a card superimposed over it, and then you can feel the raised on the text here again. So the text is by Steve Lucas. It's beautifully, beautifully done, and look inside. Full color cards, the images being larger than the images on the cards itself. Beautifully packaged guidebook. I mean, look at that. It is 177 pages long, but some of that is to do with the artists' exhibitions and things. There are 2 spreads in the back, which we'll do when we get at the end of this, but the bulk of the book has a full color image of majors and minors. The other side has a kind of description of the card and the symbols there, as well as divinatory meanings. There are not reversals, but if you use reversals, it wouldn't be hard to do so. And then it has the name, the name repeated in, I guess we'll see at the beginning here. I think it maybe is French. but I don't know that. And then it has the original size of the artwork and what medium was used. So definitely an art deck, and really, really stunning packaging. So I'm saying, you know, 3 thumbs up to US Game Systems for this. And even the packing here, it sits in here really nicely. I'm going to go ahead and take that out and close it, but this is amazing. Can we have more of this stuff in tarot decks? Because it is very much, oh my goodness, I don't know what that was. It is very much Oracle deck quality box. This is US Game System. I want to see more like this. Okay, done with that. Done with that. Here we have the cards. Can we just say for a moment, the backing is stunning. And I have seen these trimmed, which we'll get to later. And you can trim these and still have that beautiful stained glass knotwork in effect even after the trimming. So that's a big bonus for those who like to trim. This deck was sent to me by beautiful Miss Maureen. I knew she had it for a while, and she said, I'm going to set this one aside for you to send to you. And I was like, oh, no, no, no. And then it just showed up randomly in a box of goodies today. It was so sweet of her. And so I have been off and on the fence of buying this deck myself. There were a couple things that made me take pause. But the more that I have skimmed through this when I was looking at it, the less and less I feel that those are going to be an issue at all. One of the things that really appeals to me about this deck is the water suit, which is the suit of tides in this deck. And for me, those almost every one of those images just hits me. And I'm not usually like that with the cup suit. So this is what you have. You have your beautiful box, you have your beautiful deck, and you have the absolutely beautiful guidebook. Now, one thing I did misunderstand or didn't realize about this deck is I assumed, for some reason, I thought that this was a deck of pre-existing art. I believe a viewer had told me that was not the case, and indeed, in this particular, in the guidebook, it talks about kind of the road to making the deck and working with says it's Nino. Did I say Nina? I hope I didn't say Nino. But working with Nino on this, who is a female, by the way. And so she definitely learned about tarot, worked with each of the tarot images, really focused on it. So these were made specifically for each of the tarot cards. These are not pre-existing art is what I'm trying to say. It talks about the major arcana, and then it goes into the major arcana. Again, the book has a full color imagery here with, and we'll just go ahead and read the full so you can just see the writing by Steve Lucas. So here we have Major Arcana 0, the Fool, or Le Mat. It's a 24 by 14 inch piece originally with gouache. I don't know if that's how you say that. Ink and collage. So Nino's use of the circus and its tightrope as a metaphor for life and the fool's journey is an inspired and intriguing choice. Whether on the high wire or throughout life, it is less the points of origin or departure than the path itself that is all important. The Fool, associated by highly influential Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn with elemental air, maneuvers effortlessly and innocently up in the air across the circus tight wire. He follows his path ignorant of practical concerns with carefree trust and no fear of danger. Much in the same way that the aces epitomize their respective minor arcana suits, the Fool represents the seed, essence, or full potential of the entire major arcana. Divinatory meanings here is a new beginning, innocence and harmony, a joyful life, alternatively a seemingly risk, irrational, or impractical undertaking. So that does give you a bit of a reversed meaning there. We do still see the little white dog here, which is, I like that addition or that inclusion of that. And I didn't hold the card up because it's actually a bigger version of it right here. So you get that with each of the cards, including the minor arcana. You don't quite maybe get as much text with the minor arcana. You can see the difference between sort of the major arcana and the minor arcana. You get less text, but you still get that beautiful full color. And and then the same thing where you get sort of a description as well as a divinatory meaning. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful deck. Or guidebook here. I have skimmed through some of the meanings. They seem pretty, you know, standard meanings. I think that if this was somebody's first deck, look at how gorgeous some of these are. Okay, we're going to stop because we're going to look at the cards. I think that I'm going to read through this a little bit more, and by the end of the video, I will kind of comment on that a little bit further as we go along here. But I think this actually, if you're just picking this up, you do get a lot of base understanding of the cards. And there are some changes to the cards, and he does do a good job. The most notable one that people speak to, and we'll read out his, is the Emperor being changed to War. And they do, when they make those major changes, they do address that in the guidebook as to why they did that and where it is that she was coming from. So I do quite like that, but we'll look at that as we get to that particular card. And any card, there's a couple cards that have been changed. Off the top of my head, the Emperor and the Hanged Man are the two that jump out in the majors anyways that have been changed. So it comes with you know, your art card here, which is actually quite gorgeous, as well as a card that shows the changes again. So here we have traditional suits of swords, wands, cups, and pentacles or coins, and it shows that that's associated with air, fire, water, and earth. And the Japaridze Tarot has the winds for swords, the fire for wands, the tides for cups, and the gardens for pentacles, which to me is makes sense, and it's not something that would be really difficult to remember. It has also changed pages to jesters. I'm not fond of jesters, but this deck maybe will change my mind. The knights to stranger, which I think is quite interesting, and the queen and the king stay the same. So that's kind of a handy little reference card to make sure you're in your mind that there is differences here, and this is what they are. I showed you the backs. They're absolutely stunning, probably, you know, up there in the top of my list on deck backings. So let's go ahead and zoom in on the stars of the show, which is beautiful, beautiful cards. They are quite large. Let me find, oh, here we go. So here's a Llewellyn Tarot, and you can see that they are taller and a little bit wider, but they're pretty good size for, you can see the image itself is about the full size of a Llewellyn Tarot, and then of course we have the added edition here. So even trimmed, these are going to make a nice size card, even if you trimmed it down like that. Do I have something else to compare it to? No. This, for example, is the Tarot of Delphi, which is also a fairly good sized card, and it's taller. It's about the same width, but it's taller. And the image, well, the image is about the same width, but a little bit taller. So you definitely get a longer image on it. So that's that. Cardstock wise, I haven't shuffled it yet, but they feel really nice. So we'll see that at the end a little bit more. So let me put that back. Okay, so we read about the full card, so I won't obviously go through that again. But even just without, you know, you can see that sort of the dog jumping. It's that risky on the edge of the cliff feel. Life as a circus theme is certainly here. I'm not a huge fan of circuses or circus themes, but I have a feeling this deck may change my mind about that. The next card we have is the beautiful Magician card. This is beautiful. We see, I think, all of the elements here. And And it talks about, one thing I like about the guidebook, we'll kind of talk through the guidebook a little bit as we go, but it talks about how this is the first of the group of 7 cards that concentrate on the material plane. And so for the, the Fool kind of stands out as being both the seed and the completion. I love that idea. Here we have the seed and also the completion of the major arcana. Love that. And then this is starting to bring about the 7 that have to do with the material plane. So I really like this. It also talks about how that the magician harnesses all the elements, and I do think that we can see that here. We can see water, we can see fire, we can see like we don't see the traditional like wand, sword, cup, that kind of each of the things, but it says but look at how we can, I don't know if you can see right here is his mask. It says, revealed only by his mask and otherwise hidden, he manifests a primordial field of elemental energy. See how wonderful that is? He's actually invisible, and what you're seeing is what he's manifested. I think that's quite powerful, isn't it? Yeah, I really, really like that. And just imagery wise, it's so beautiful. So beautiful. Look at here, we almost see this view of almost like it's a reflection of him, and look at, we see wings on his back. Do you see that there? Ooh, like that. Okay. Here we have the Priestess. Now, this is very collage-y. I did not used to be a fan of collage art. I have become much more of a fan of collage art than I used to. But this is all, it says even in here, teeming with lunar and water imagery. This shows the High Priestess, or the Priestess, they call this the Priestess, not High, channeling the depths of emotion and the deepest levels of the unconscious. And it says together with the Empress, we have that complete picture of the archetype of woman. So that's quite interesting also. But let's see, do we see any of the typical, a lot of things floating around here. We can see obviously the profile here. This to me is very surrealistic. But the thing is it feels high priestessy. It feels like in the depths of the water. We see the moon here. We see almost the 2 towers that you could kind of see in right here. At least that gives me that imagery there. So even though we're not seeing a lot of structure because this is surreal art, it feels like the Priestess. It feels like the High Priestess card, and that I think is where the power is, right? Same thing here. Here we have the Empress card, and we have that sense of, and this talks about how she is suspended between earth and the sky, suggesting the life-giving power of the sun. This is supposed to be the sensual and maternal aspects of woman and completes the female archetype when you combine it with the High Priestess with the kind of the intuition and the deeper unconscious layers. But it says, you have that really greenness there. We have the bright yellow sun. So you do in coloration still get the sense of empressness to the card. So I think that that's really beautiful, and I think that it depicts the energy without having the specific symbology perhaps that we're used to seeing with the cards. Now, here comes one that certainly has held me up from getting this deck, and I think it's certainly talked about along with the eyeball and the moon, I think. So I'm going to actually read this so that we can see what the guidebook says. So this is Major Arcana number 4, and it is known as War. Here is the first and only significant departure of the Japaridze Tarot from the traditional naming convention of the constituents of the major arcana. Customarily titled the Emperor, this card embodies the archetypal father possessing a worldly masculine energy of a less creative but more disciplined nature than that of the magician. His power is often seen as a stabilizing energy that counterbalances the feminine energy of the Empress and represents authority, social order, and control. And I do think that this can depict that idea. You know, and even in traditional emperors, we do see him in chainmail. We do understand the emperor rules through power. I mean, we don't have an emperor sitting on his throne in a chain of armor or in a suit of chained mail under his regal clothing. He probably didn't get there without asserting his control and asserting his power. So I do think that that is reflected here and is part of the energy of the emperor. And even the idea of bringing order through chaos, which is really hard, bringing order to chaos, I think is able to read that the way that I read the Emperor. I can read it here. Do I prefer it to be war? No, I prefer this to simply say the Emperor, even if we left war as the image. That's not my preference, but can I work with it? I think I can. It says that there are both positive and negative aspects to authority and control. The artist has chosen to portray a less harmonic facet of patriarchal power, the darker side of social order wherein emperors send other men off to war. Divinatory meaning is still a dominant figure taking control of a situation, a challenge to be overcome, rules and regulations, and imposing order. So I do think that, you know, it works. My issue with this card is that I do feel that it only displays a single facet of the emperor versus showing maybe a more rounded, like I like the emperor in a throne in nature because there are aspects of nature rulership as well as political type of rulership, or material rulership as well. But I do think that I can read with this. I'll be interested to see as it comes up in readings. But this is certainly would be the one card that made me hesitate to purchase this deck. But we'll see how it goes. That brings us to the Hierophant. And this is the first example of the bat that we'll see in this deck, but not the last, as it is the primary image in the suit of air, which is quite interesting, but we'll talk about that when we get there. I know I'm going to be... I'm not worrying about it. I'm just going with it. But this talks about how the artist has depicted a quite specific and somewhat atypical image for this card. I don't know that I would call this atypical image-wise, but it says it's traditionally associated with those religious and social institutions wherein individuals fulfill designated roles. So normally we will see, you know, like the Pope or something along that lines here. You know, with sort of the people, the supplicants at the feet, this kind of thing. And so here we have some of these theologies may advertise or promise benefits, including transcendence, as is represented by the ladder. So we can see that climbing up, but the ominous bat crosses it denotes jeopardy that may accompany blind adherence to dogma. So how interesting is that? There also seems to be things carved on these stones that I'd really like to know what they are. In terms of divination, convention, conformity, alignment with a group, a teacher, or a guide, very atypical meanings towards it. But I don't think that the imagery is atypical, and I quite like it because we do have this, you know, ladder climbing upward, but is dogma, is organized religion, is that something that is going to block transcendence? That seems to be the message that I see here, which I think is pretty neat. That's an interesting card there. Love this card. It's a love card. So obviously this traditionally is the lovers or lover. But this does focus on the idea of ethical or moral choice. I will say that the divinatory meanings are quite, to me, so far standard. This wouldn't be a bad deck. You don't get the traditional imagery, but I think in terms of meaning, they're staying fairly close. But I do like how it ties the cards together. So here we have, obviously, the Hierophant, and then we go to love, and it says, following the social obligations relating to group consciousness developed in the major arcana's cosmic journey, come those choices that are individual and voluntarily made. And so that's what this card is about individual and voluntary choices. So I really like the way that the guidebook represents that, or speaks to that. And then the last of the cards that are in the material world, as it said, is the Chariot. And I really like this card. Now, don't get me wrong. I like Chariot cards with the double horses. And you think about the energy and you've got movement. There's no people here whatsoever. So it's not my absolute favorite image of the Chariot, but I like it. It speaks to movement, right? And I like what it says here, that the card speaks to intentionality, purpose, and the direction of will and personal power in order to achieve individual goals. I think that's fantastic. So it's not an atypical Chariot. I do like to see a strong, confident woman in the Chariot card, but this also works quite well, and I think it's fantastic. Look at the Justice card. So now it talks about, so this is why I'm saying I'm really impressed so far with the guidebook, because now we say, okay, this is the first member of what can be seen as the second group of 7 major arcana cards that concentrates on the mental plane. So we had the physical plane, and now we have the mental plane. And so they have Justice at 8, and obviously, strength is going to be at 11. That is quite traditional. So obviously, some people prefer one or the other, but it certainly is traditional, and I don't mind anymore. I don't mind either way. Another thing is that I do really see, so I like how it explains that we've made a shift here. I also like how it ties it in. So it says the 2 cards preceding it, Love and the Chariot, dealt with different aspects of individual choice. The Justice card reflects on the responsibility for all of the choices we make, as well as the ramifications of every decision. It's also concerned with ideas of equilibrium and balance in one's life. The abstract crystalline structures visible in the earlier Love card, so you can see those showing up here, now shown fragmented and in disarray, are nevertheless shielded and balanced by the umbrellas whose shape plays on the forms of Justice's traditional scales. So it says accepting responsibility for a choice, cause and effect, an important decision. So I really like the tie-ins that we're seeing here, and I think that so far what I'm seeing, the guidebook is doing an great job at talking about those tie-ins. Look at the Hermit. Now, how interesting is this? So here we have, obviously, number 9, the Hermit. And this says, radiating shamanic energy and teeming with personal and mystical symbols is the Hermit. And then it does go on to talk about these symbols. And so this is another example of what, for me, is a good guidebook. If we're going to do something that's really outside of the box artistically, what we normally see, I want to know why. I want to know what, like this one. They explain the umbrellas. It explains that this is connected with the hearts in the Lovers card. I want to know why they've chosen to do something. It says, hovering immediately to the left of the image's central rectangle is an unnamed tailed urchin-like creature whose appearance recurred frequently in Japaridze's 2008-2010 drawing and painting cycles. So that's quite interesting, right, to see that, although I personally see a tree there, not a urchin. But it talks about the Hermit more than any other card deals with such dialectics as detachment and immersion, introspection and guidance, which I love that it really focuses on that sort of dichotomy that's going on. As the facets of the mind proceed with their dissolution into the oneness of the spirit. How great is that? So I love here, we actually see a hand, what seems to be holding a little lantern here. So we still see that. We've got the spotlight being shown. We've got the mind here being opened up. We've got what almost looks like gear work, but at the same time our organs. Quite interesting. That's one I will definitely be sitting with. But again, I do quite appreciate how, for such a small amount of text, that the guidebook is giving us windows into what's going on without completely locking it down. We still have so much room to just intuitively go with the images. But again, the feeling of the Hermit, I think, is there. We have the light being shown down. We have the mind here. I think we have everything that you would need traditionally to speak to the Hermit card. I really love this Wheel of Fortune card. I'm generally not a fan of Wheel of Fortune card imagery. I think that this one is quite beautiful. It talks about the concepts of integration of the mind, body, and spirit on the path to the ultimate destination of the major arcana's journey continue to be addressed in the fortune cards. So it says, again, it's addressing, I really like this. It says, while previous cards have concerned themselves with the perspective of the individual, here are the preponderance of events and influences beyond one's control are considered. So I really like this. It also talks about still referencing the wheel motif, but it's more fractured and random and more chaotic than, say, although I personally think that that's still fairly fractured and chaotic, but it's all kind of moving around instead of being in very concise places, I suppose. But again, it discusses how this itself is doing, and then also talking about how it connects with the other cards, and I think that's really well done. Next we have the Strength card, and so here is the beautiful, to me this is very recognizable as the Strength card, even though obviously they're falling from the sky. It's still recognizable as the Strength card with the woman and the lion here. And it does say that the nature of strength implied in this painting is inner rather than brute force, which I quite like, as evidenced by the ease and comfort which the woman coexists next to her savage, untamable confederate. And so I quite like this. And again, it talks about, in contrast to the previous card, Fortune, which focused on external events over which one may not have direct authority, Strength is concerned with elements and aspects of conscious control. So see how the guidebook is really going into the way these cards are talking to each other. And that, to me, is really handily done in quite a relatively small text. Well done, Steve Lucas. Now this is another one that has changed. We've seen minor changes with, love instead of love. The War was the main one, but they're pretty much have been the same. And Fortune instead of the Wheel of Fortune, but that we've seen as well in other decks. But the Drowned instead of the Hanged Man, or usually the Hanged Man. That's quite interesting, isn't it? And so here we have the 12th card it talks about, and it does say it's traditionally the Hanged Man. The image is among those most consistently depicted in the history of tarot as a cross-legged figure suspended upside down by one foot. The card represents surrender to a higher level of existence and the attainment of wisdom. The artist's alternate vision finds the drowned immersed in water, which is the element of the Hanged Man card. symbolizing the unconscious and portraying a calm, peaceful acceptance of this flood of consciousness. This idea expands upon the previous card, Strength, which was concerned with the exercise of control. This card considers how the relinquishment of control may be an essential step on the path to enlightenment. This is beautiful. These together are beautiful. The conversation that these cards are having is beautiful. Love it. Love it, love it, love it. And look at this Death card. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Wow, I love that. Look at, so you can see almost like what you can sometimes see going around the Wheel of Fortune. Here we have a body rolling around. Here's the head. We've got almost like hair coming off here. Oh, this is gorgeous. I know I've been reading so many of these, but I'm quite interested in this guidebook. It says, perhaps the most misunderstood and unnecessarily feared card in the entire tarot deck, Death does not speak of physical death, but rather refers to impending, profound mental transformation resulting from the progression described in the previous cards. This is more a card of transition and regeneration, as indicated by the flood of new births issuing from the expired figure wrapped around the conventional symbols. So here, oh, let's see if you can see this more closely. Look. See all those bodies? So we have death here, and we have the cycle of death, but look at this one life is regenerating in so many different lifetimes. Look at that. That's fantastic. I love it. Love that card. Okay, then we have Temperance, and how beautiful is this? Although I don't immediately look at this and think, okay, this is the Temperance card, because I think Temperance is alchemy and the mixing of fire and water, although we do see the watery blue women here as well as the fiery background. But it does talk about these two swings with the women looking up. One of them is supposed to look like sort of ecstatic joy, and the other one being very serene. It says that Temperance is the Japaridze, I get it down how to say it, and then I mess it up again. Japaridze. Here we go. Temperance is Japaridze's unique vision of the calm before the storm in the most turbulent segment of the major arcana. The period of ego dissolution and forces of balance amidst dramatic changes represented by its surrounding cards, Death and the Devil, and then on ultimately to the Tower. So this has the meaning of Temperance as calmness under pressure, seeking the right path, balance, and a fair agreement. I don't think so much about those things. I mean, I do think about balance because you have the balance of yin and yang. I do apologize. Isabel is digging a hole to China through a paper plate. Now, I pulled out this book here, Learning the Tarot by Jo Bunning, because Miss Maureen had sent this book along with me, for me. And for Temperance, it does talk about that calmness. To me, to be temperate is to show moderation and self-restraint, which is true. In a world full of enticing indulgences, which we see in the Devil's card, right? It's often necessary to find the middle ground. Sensible maybe, but also a bit boring. The energy of Temperance may be unexciting at the surface, but it is the calm at a hurricane's eye. So we definitely see that. I have certainly gotten more of a mixing, a balancing. When you put together fire and water, you gain something new. I think I have a little bit more of the alchemist view of Temperance, but I quite like this, especially because this deck so much is talking about how these are interacting with each other. And so when we see the Death and then we see the Devil at the other side, and this being the calm in the middle of the storm, I think that's pretty neat. I like the way that this deck is interacting with the cards around it. The Druidcraft, I think, also does a really good job of that. I have to say, one of the other things that this right here makes me think of a surfboard, and you kind of think about riding that, the calm part of the wave, kind of waiting for that perfect moment when the wave washes over. That's just something that randomly came to mind. And of course, here we have the Devil card. We can see a bat showing up here, as we have a trap or burden that may be self-inflicted is sort of the key words. But you can see the figure, the grasping hand here. You can see almost the mechanisms of the devil. I like that. You can see sort of the wings almost going on. So we get the essence, and the flames here. You get the essence of a traditional devil. Here's like a little tail and his little feet here. Quite interesting going on. Some stuff going up here that I'd really like to know what that is, because I love that. It talks about how Buddhism refers to the attachment to the material as grasping, and we can kind of see that with the hand here, just kind of grabbing at everything that's colorful and in reach. Very cool. And then, of course, we have the tower. I think this is stunning. Truthfully, this is probably one of my favorite images of the tower. It looks chaotic. It looks crumbling. It looks destructive. We still do have a figure falling right here in the middle. We can see that falling there. But we do still also have some stuff is still left. There is stability still there. The Big Bang moment, it says, in which one is violently jolted from the last vestiges of ego-driven consciousness to the first stage of a higher spiritual existence depicted in the remaining cards. Hey, yeah, I'm giving this guidebook 2 thumbs up. It's not overly wordy. It's very precise and concise. It's not very eloquent, and I don't mean that it's not well written, but I mean it is very precise, very methodical, but it is very clear, and I think it gives some great information. Oh, look at that. So that, I saw that somewhere. Oh, that was on the art, kind of the art card. I believe from what I read that this was the very first card that she painted. Yep, here we go. The star was the very first work created for this, that she created for the tarot series. The image of a languorous woman partially reclining on a bed was a motif that recurred in a lot of her work. This highly personal and representative image serves as a fitting departure point from the artist in her head first dive into the world of tarot. As Temperance was said to be the calm before the storm of the volatile cards that succeed it, the star can be seen as the calm after the storm, a period of peace and harmony. How beautiful is that? I'm really impressed with this deck. Can I just say that? Here we have the other card I think that people talk about a lot, which is the moon with the eyeball attached, floating disembodied eyeball. I love this. It says the moon, signifying trust in and surrender to the unconscious, is the card of the feminine archetype in its highest spiritual essence. See, that is truthfully how I read the moon. I know there's a lot going on in traditional moon cards about the illusionary and things not being as they seem, and that kind of stuff. The confusion, which it does talk about in the divinatory meaning. But it does say that the network of nerves hints at the variegated meanings this card may represent. The world of dreams and visions, including that which may be only partially seen or seen from within. So I think that's pretty cool. I'm not a fan of disembodied eyeballs, but I think it works really well. Here we have the Sun card, and I am happy to say that there are no babies or naked babies on horses. We have, seems more like a female, but it doesn't really matter. I think it could be anything. But we have an adult human being here. And I love that, see, we have this darkness here. We've got snakes. We have the bat, which is kind of creepy. almost has you can see its little face here. We're not all that fond of bats, but I did read a little bit about the bats in the symbol suit of winds, and I quite like that. So, but we still have the darker things, and look at the light is pushing them away, and that's what it talks about. Darker symbols of anxiety and unease are shown conquered and easily dispatched by the brilliant fiery light of the sun, signifying freedom. I love that. From fear and comfort in conscious knowledge. This is the card of the masculine archetype in its highest spiritual essence. So this is the archetype of the feminine in its highest spiritual aspect, and this so for the masculine. Love it, love it, love it, love it. Judgment. This is truthfully probably one of my favorite Judgment cards. So there's a couple cards in here that I could almost say these might be my favorite images for that particular card, and this is one of them. It says, an apocalyptic atmosphere in which swarming birds fill a dark sky as it opens to the sun's penetrating rays speak to this card's predominant theme of rebirth and release of the past. Judgment can also be seen as the synthesis and unification of the male and female spiritual distillations portrayed in the previous two cards. See how he's tying everything together? A new beginning, reawakening, understanding gain through reflection, making a choice or decision. I think it's stunning. You do get that watery depths with the shining of the sun through it. That's really neat. I'm quite impressed here. I'm telling you. And then here's the world, which I love because it looks almost like a coral reef. We'll see if that's what it says, but that's kind of what I see, is that sort of entire working world of a coral reef like we see at the end of the Animal Totem tarot. So very excited. It says a completion of the grand cycle that is the Fool's journey is depicted as a complete unification with all the universe has to offer, the material and the ethereal, the living and the non-sentient. Our cosmic traveler is pictured at the center of this composition in an intriguing pose, arms outstretched, see her right here, with her arms outstretched and chest thrust forward, engulfed in the panoply of existence. It seems a pose of divine ecstasy and complete integration with all that surrounds her. Indeed, she can hardly be distinguished from every other element surrounding her in the world. That's fantastic. Love it. And I don't generally like world art found in world cards. Probably the world card and the Wheel of Fortune are two that I generally don't like the artwork in decks on them. And I quite like both of these. So then that brings us to the minors, and I know this has taken quite a while. I'm really impressed with this. As before, my only reservation is with the War card, only showing sort of that one aspect of what I deem the Emperor. I still think that it's workable and readable as that sort of assertion of power, assertion of control that can go very, very wrong. Sometimes it can go right and lead to security, and sometimes it can go to leading of dominance. So I do think that it can be worked with, but that's, other than that, yeah, I am really impressed, and I'm not going to go through the guidebook as much as I did, but I'm really impressed with this guidebook, which technically, in terms of words, isn't very large because half of it is, of course, taken up by the images. But I'm really impressed with, in a very clear, very precise, not going horribly deep. It's giving us this picture and how the cards are interacting and talking to each other. So, yeah, kudos to Steve Lucas for, I think, doing a really good job at giving us that base structure there of the major arcana in a relatively small space. So there we go.